I would like to welcome everyone to this webinar once again. Let me begin with what the agenda is for today. This is the agenda for today for the next about 40 minutes or so, and I'm going to cover the following topics. So we've got this list here, as you can see here. We're going to look at the various certifications in the market, some of the reputed ones, followed by focusing on PMP and PRINCE2, what they are. Then some statistics from PMI as well as AXELOS, who own PMP and PRINCE2 respectively on project management job growth. So these are the two next topics, followed by, we'll look at briefly at some of the exam references. What are the key references from PMI for PMP, as well as from AXELOS for PRINCE2. So PMP, project management professional, PRINCE2, project in controlled environments. Then we compare both exams from their prerequisites. There are some preconditions to write the exam, and then the nature of the exams themselves would be compared. But the core of this webinar comes here in this topic, comparing the course content for PMP and PRINCE2. This is where I think most of you would be very eager to know what is covered within PMP and what is covered within PRINCE2. So this one, watch out for this part. And then finally, what to decide? Should I go for PRINCE2 or should I go for PMP? We'll look at that briefly before you can make your own decision. Well, most of us are generally aware about PMP, Project Management Professional from PMI USA. This is their website. And some of you might be aware of, particularly if you're in Europe, then PRINCE2 is quite popular in Europe, particularly in the UK. AXELOS is the owner. And we have got IPMA from Europe as well, highly respected within Europe, particularly Netherlands, Switzerland, and some of those neighboring countries there. And then in the UK, we've got one more, the APM, Association of Project Management. Now, IPMA and APM have got multiple certification levels. PRINCE2 has got 2 levels, PMP has got 1 level, and there is another one related to PMP, the CAPM. We'll look at that also briefly. And we also got the Guild of Project Controls, more for the construction industry. So if you're from construction, this could be valuable to you. They've got their own certifications and materials for you to look at. You can become a member. Their subscriptions are quite low. All of them have subscriptions if you want to get more information from these bodies, highly reputed. And there are some more which I have not listed. You may be aware of from your own region, some of those additional bodies. And keeping the same intention, let me show you some of those websites as well. So this is the PMI website, the pmi.org. And please explore this. Particularly, you may want to go to the certification page and check out the certification types, particularly the PMP down below, as well as the CAPM, Certified Associate in Project Management. I'm going to talk about that also in a while. On the other hand, yeah, we've got the AXELOS. This is the AXELOS site, just coming up shortly. They are the owner of PRINCE2, Project in Controlled Environments. So you need to go to the certifications page and check out their various certifications. And this is where you will see the PRINCE2 certification. Yeah, here within PRINCE2 6th edition. This was released in 2017, rebranded as 6th edition some months ago. So this is where we're going to compare this PRINCE2 with PMP today. And then you've got the IPMA, the International Project Management Association, and that's this one. So they've got some excellent stuff here as well, IPMA. And lastly, I want to show you, actually not lastly, just a couple more, the APM site, so that you know how each one differs. Make a quick visual map of these sites, APM in the UK. And lastly, you've got the Planning Planet. So that's the starting point for these various certifications. And so you have the right to choose whichever you prefer. And coming back to, so now the focus is PMP and PRINCE2. So I've taken from the PMI website on the PMP certification page what they say about PMP. And you can see it clearly here. Wherever you are in your career, the globally recognized project management professional certification tells employers, peers, and the world you know what you're doing in project management. And the CIO magazine ranked this certification as the top project management certification. Now, each organization has their own way of ranking, but this is what PMI has said themselves about how they have been ranked by the CIO magazine, because it proves that you have specific skills and experience which employers seek. So that's the starting of the story for PMP. And Prince2, let's look at what Prince2 is and how it is defined by AXELOS. So AXELOS defines Prince2 as project in controlled environments, as you can see it here, and they call it one of the most widely used methods. The word method is important here for managing projects in the world. It's a structured project management method based on experience drawn from thousands of projects and from contributions of countless project sponsors, project managers, project teams, academics, trainers, and consultants. And this is what is mentioned in their key publication, Managing Successful Projects with Prince2, 6th edition, also known as 2017. So that's the backdrop to both these certifications. The next is to understand the job market for project managers. These are reports published by PMI. PMI publishes annual reports. Every year they publish certain unique reports. Right now they have published about things which are trending in terms of technology and disruption and all that. Please do take a look at those reports on the PMI site. You may have to search for pulse of the profession, pulse, just like our heartbeat or pulse. Yeah, that's what you check on the PMI site. And as per the job growth report, now we may have to take this with a pinch of salt right now, because right now we are all in the global COVID-19 situation, and this report is 2017. So, but still there are some realities still depicted in this report, meaning there's a huge potential for project manager roles. The demand at that time, at least in 2017, for the next 10 years. And leading sectors are shown below. These are some of the leading sectors. If your sector is not mentioned, do not get disheartened. There is always project management happening in all sectors. Yeah, that's my view and what I know. And you know better in your own world that there is project management most likely happening in your domain. But these are some of maybe the high growth areas. And this one we need to consider as well. So there may be some changes to these numbers depending on how businesses are operating nowadays worldwide. But I think there is still some relief in this report for us that yes, there seems to be some potential for growth in project management. By the way, we will have a Q&A session at the end. Please do mark your questions, and I do request you to bring them up at the end. We'll have about 20 minutes or so at the end, where I would be really happy to clarify. Let's see the story from AXELOS, from their report. What do they say? PPM report, benchmark. PPM stands for Program and Portfolio Management, which includes project management as well. So what they have said is decision makers and individuals both place high value on PPM and ITSM certifications. Some of you might be from the ITSM area, the service management, things like ITIL or Verism, and all that, those related areas and certifications. Okay. Sorry, there were some squares out there which are not erased. So I just erased them. Yeah, there seemed to be some lag in the erase option there. So my apologies. So high value on getting certified. On one hand, you may want to get trained, but getting certified has higher value. That's the message there. And similarly for the ITSM like ITIL, Verism, and so on, or ISO 20000 service management. So there is a high demand for the next 2 years at least and beyond, and as well as project management certifications. References. To get some background about exam references, the PMP exam operates mainly based on the guide to the project management body of knowledge. I'm sure many of you would have heard about this or read this or done some training already, PM BOG guide. It's not the complete body of knowledge, but it's a subset of all the body of knowledge which is available globally for project management. Basically, all the best practices of project management are available here from PMI. So this is the main study reference for the PMP exam. And a lot of questions come up the moment we talk about the PMBOK guide. Which edition is it? Currently, the 6th edition is running, number 6. The 7th edition is not out yet, as shown here. The 7th edition will be coming up this year as per official announcement from PMI. They already done the draft and the review is going on, and we don't know exactly when it will come out, but it will. That's PMI's statement so far. So do watch out for the 7th edition when it comes out. And from next year, the exam is going to significantly change. So if you're attending the PMP class this year and you write the exam this year, you have an advantage because we've got good amount of practice tests for you and good references from websites where you can practice some free questions or paid questions, so on. But if the exam is going to change from 2nd Jan, then nobody knows exactly what kind of questions you might get. Though a syllabus has been published by PMI, but you know the challenges, right? So good idea to do it now. But if you want to wait for the new PMBOK to come out and you want to also get into the agile, because the 2020 exam, sorry, this is 2021. My apologies. I'm still showing the wrong year there. Just my apologies for that. I'm just doing an online correction there. 2021 is when you have the new exam. It's not 2020. We are already in 2020. So hopefully by then we also have the new edition of the PMBOK guide. If not, even then the new syllabus is valid. And if the new PMBOK guide comes out by then not only the new syllabus is valid, but also the revised PMBOK guide is also valid. So the exam challenge might increase. Yeah, we don't know. So the PMBOK guide is the current reference guide, but going ahead, the Agile practice guide is also needed to be studied and also to be imparted in the training programs for the new exam. And this is the syllabus document which you can download from the PMI side. And we will explain all this to you more clearly during the training. And what's the new syllabus on, just once again for PMI for next year? Half of the questions would be from the Agile area. The remaining half would be traditional project management. Right now, almost everything is about traditional project management, the waterfall life cycle. But going ahead, it is half Agile plus hybrid and the remaining half from traditional project management. Again, there's also change to it is not just process questions, or some of you might be familiar with the ITTO questions and so on, ITTO diagrams. It is not only that anymore. There are going to be more questions on people management, more questions on business and strategic management from next year. So significant changes coming up next year for the PMP exam. Let's look at the meaning of methodology first, because we are now going into PRINCE2, which is a methodology, not a body of knowledge. And what does PMI, how does PMI define a methodology? It's very interesting. In their PMBOK guide, they say this. The PMBOK guide is different from a methodology because a methodology is a system of practices, techniques, procedures, and rules used by those who work in a discipline. The PMBOK guide is a foundation upon which organizations can build methodologies, policies, rules, tools, and techniques, etc. So PMBOK guide is like exposing to everything almost, but then it may not be structured as you want it. If you want to, for example, clearly know how to review project progress at the end of a phase or a stage, then it leaves or allows us to frame that. How do we want to review the stage end or the toll gate or the phase ending checkpoint? It does give us sufficient information to design that review process, whereas PRINCE2 clearly tells what should be done in a review. So that's one example of the difference between the two. So going ahead with that understanding, let us now look at PRINCE2 for a while. PRINCE2 is basically a publication or a guidance from AXELOS in the UK. The guidance is in this manual. And please remember, there is also the 2009 version of this manual. Please, we are only referring to the 2017, also known as 6th edition. So irrespective of whether you are going through a 2017 manual or a 6th edition manual, both are the same. It is just a rebranding of the 2017 to the 6th edition, but the content remains 100% the same. However, the 2009 edition is much older. Now we start comparing both. So far, we haven't done any comparisons. PMP on the left, PRINCE2 on the right. This is what you will see on this and a few subsequent slides. Some prerequisites. PMP requires 3 years of project management experience and 35 hours of compulsory training, which means you need a training certificate when you're applying for the exam. E-learning is okay. You can do self-learning or e-learning through a training provider. Some amount of self-learning is also okay. You cannot do all the 35 hours using learning from a book or reading articles. You need some training certification from someone with some hours at least. And 3 years is for people who have a degree. Those who have a diploma will require, or a non-university education will require 5 years of project management experience. So therefore, if an individual does not have the 3 year or the 5 year, either with a degree or a diploma, then they could opt for the CAPM, Certified Associate in Project Management. Really good. Is almost the same as PMP as per PMI. It is for people who would like to do more challenging projects. CAPM is not, PMI doesn't say that CAPM is for entry level PMs. It says it is for people who would like to take on more challenging projects or who would like to take on a new PM responsibility, valid for both type of people. But PMP requires some proven experience. And of course, PMP will allow you to handle more challenging projects. Certification is not permanent, 3 years validity only. So in our training program, we will explain how to retain that. There is a continuing certification, a credential program from PMI where we need to submit 20 hours of effort every year, contribution to project management, either through experience of working or teaching others or mentoring or writing articles, publishing something, showing all those evidences so that you don't have to write the exam again after 3 years. You just fill in an application, show the evidence of those 60 hours over the 3 years, and then you're recertified with a payment of a nominal amount. Yeah. On the other hand, by the way, the CAPM is valid for 5 years, not 3, for 5 years. Yeah. PRINCE2 has 2 levels, foundation and practitioner. Foundation, no prerequisites. The certificate does not expire. This training takes you through the entire PRINCE2 course, completely. Just that it goes more through concepts, definitions, and terminology. It doesn't go into real world case studies, scenario, and so on. Because the practitioner level, the next level, is about a scenario understanding, how to do project management in a given scenario. So this is generally a 2-day program, the foundation, and the practitioner is another 2-day. Yeah, so we do a 4-day program combined. And for the practitioner, you need to be foundation certified, or you need to have some other project certification, for example, PMP or APM or IPMA or something else, so that you can directly do practitioner. Myself, for example, I was PMP certified, so I did not do foundation. I directly did PRINCE2 practitioner. We're almost there, coming into the key differences between the two certifications. But before that, the nature of the exams. PMP is a strenuous exam, 4 hours. It is doable. Some people might be apprehensive about, might be too difficult. I've heard others not passing. Not to worry about it. All of you have the capability and the mindset to pass this exam. All it needs is a good training program, good clarity in the program about concepts, some good practice of questions, and then you go back and prepare, put some hard work, sincere work for about 6 to 8 weeks, good preparation, solid preparation, and you're ready to write the exam and pass it. So it's a 4-hour exam with 200 questions and a 10-minute break after 2 hours. So you have to do the 200 questions first, and then you get a 10-minute break, and then you do the next 200. In the next 2 hours, you are not allowed to change your answers to the first 200 questions. So we're going to tell you all this very clearly in our training. The questions are mostly situation based. Each question could be a different small situation. And psychometric testing Yeah, because it tests the individual's personality, emotional reactions, their behaviors, not only their project management skills, but personality and all kinds of things are subtly tested in those questions. So, for example, does a person get aggressive and fires employees, or do they take a more softer approach or a balanced approach? All those kind of things are tested. Multiple choice, all of them, no negative marking. Sorry, yeah, I think I might have made a mistake. Yeah, when I said it is 200 questions. Yeah, total 200. Just to be very clear, my apologies. And you get a 10-minute break after 2 hours. So 100 questions, then break, then 100 questions. Yeah, my sincere apologies for that. And thank you, Kem, for raising that point. Just a slip of my tongue there. All are multiple choice, no negative marking, fortunately. Normally, the exam has to be done at a center, at a Pearson VUE exam center, and it is online. They have a test system online. But due to the COVID, they are allowing to write the exam from home temporarily until further notice. And it'll be proctored by somebody. There'll be an online supervisor through the webcam. It's a closed book exam. So, okay. I noted the point from Kem. I'll come back to that in a while. Thank you. I think Kem mentioned that the break is after 89 minutes, but on the PMI side, they mention after 2 hours, and then 10-minute break, and then 2 hours. Okay, then it's a closed book, whereas PRINCE2 is for 1 hour with 60 questions. The foundation exam, so it's just 1 hour, so which means 60 minutes and 60 questions. So 1 minute per question approximately. Whereas on the PMP, when you have 4 hours for 200 questions, you got approximately 1 minute, 15 seconds or so, 12 seconds, 15 seconds approximately per question. So here I got 1 minute per question. It's multiple choice again, PRINCE2, and it's mainly basic. It's recalling of concepts from memory and understanding of the terms. Whereas the practitioner one is more advanced. It's for 2.5 hours, and it has 68 questions. Or it could be 46 because sometimes the questions are clubbed. So when they're clubbed, then it becomes 46. So irrespective of that, 68 questions and then 38 to pass. They have pass percentage clearly mentioned in both. Here out of 60, you need to pass 33. And out of 68, you need to clear 38, correct? On the PMP exam, nobody knows what is the pass score. So that's a mystery or a secret. Nobody knows the score. However, the PRINCE2 practitioner is an open book exam. You can use the official hard copy guidance from AXELOS or their publishers, the TSO shop in the UK. However, because of COVID, they are actually allowing to use even printed PDF. You could have a printed PDF copy, or you could have a soft copy of the manual on another system, like on your mobile phone or a tablet or another PC, on a second PC. And not on the same PC as the exam, because that system will be blocked only for the exam. So there is some flexibility for now, at least. So we will. I'll come to some of the questions afterwards. Some of you may be having some questions. I'll take them towards the end. I'm just noting them. And I do appreciate it. Please do keep raising those questions. There's again a Q&A forum at the end. Now, to the core of this subject, the actual differences between the PMP curriculum or the subject matter and the PRINCE2. So on the left, these are some of the key differences. There are commonalities also, as we will see here. PRINCE2, they look at principles of project management, whereas in the PMP course, there are no principles stated. However, going forward in the PMBOK guide from PMI, the 7th edition, principles are being included just for the future, so that you know. In PRINCE2, we've got the 7 themes. The themes are various areas of project management, as you can expect, for example, cost management or schedule management and procurement management and so on. So the themes are known as, those aspects are known as themes in PRINCE2, whereas those aspects are known as knowledge areas in PMP. So themes and knowledge areas are almost the same. They just have a different terminology. However, PRINCE2 focuses on specific 7 areas, whereas PMP focuses on specific 10 areas. And we're going to look at those differences shortly. In PRINCE2, there is a lot of focus on the business case, the justification for a project. Why continue, why it should not continue. Throughout the project, these kind of justifications will be done in a PRINCE2 project. It will be done in any project, of course, but that concept is not elaborated in the PMP course. You will understand what is a business case, but nothing more beyond that in the PMP course. And because PRINCE2 is a controlled environment, therefore, it teaches us how to control, monitor and control specific projects. Project roles and responsibilities are made very clear in PRINCE2. For example, there is an executive, there is a project manager role, there is a change authority role, there's a project management structure, team structure, or an organization structure. The PMP course, though it does emphasize the need for clearly defined roles and responsibilities, but it doesn't specifically define them. It doesn't tell us exactly how the team structure should be. Rather, it focuses more on what kind of skills and competencies the PM should have, the project manager should have, how people management should be done, how the stakeholders need to be identified and engaged or managed. Yeah? So these are taught in the PMP course. Some of these are definitely mentioned in the PRINCE2 manual. The manual does go a little deeper into some of these topics, not deeper, a little bit into these topics also in PRINCE2. However, they are not part of the exam. So even if we see something about stakeholder or people management in the PRINCE2 manual, they will not be taught in the course nor will be examined in the exam. However, as a trainer, myself and my colleagues, we do sometimes bring up those topics because participants usually have, or delegates usually have questions about their maybe their challenges on people management or other aspects. So we do discuss them. Planning in PRINCE2 is fully product based. And as you know, planning is not just about defining the product, but PRINCE2 puts a lot of emphasis on defining the product clearly, the product requirements and the solution which will be delivered to the client or the customer or the user. Whereas in the PMP course, there's a lot of focus on these things, building aspects and techniques like critical path method, how to handle resource challenges, estimation techniques, costing and budgeting, reserve management, requirements gathering approaches, collection techniques, product solutioning techniques. So these are covered in depth, whereas these are on the left, we have focus only on the product-based planning. At the same time, the PRINCE2 manual does have a little bit of information about all of this, a little bit, but they're not taught in the course because they're not part of the exam syllabus. So I think by now you must be thinking there's benefit in both. There are some good things on the left and some good things on the right. A little bit more on the comparison between the two. This is the last slide on the comparison aspect. What is covered in PRINCE2? What is covered in PMP? So on the left, we have got quality planning, how to define user requirements, and how to do the quality control, some basic concepts. Whereas in PMP, there is more focus on techniques, for example, sampling techniques or quality assurance methods like audits and design for design for excellence and all that is. There's some more depth in those techniques on the right side in PMP. However, the concept of quality itself is well covered in PRINCE2. The importance of performing testing, the importance of someone reviewing the test results, and after someone reviews the test results, the product needs to be approved by someone before it can be handed over to the customer. So on the left, we have got a lot more emphasis on procedures of testing followed by a review, followed by an approval of a product, followed by the user acceptance. So a lot more clarity on how practically it can be done. Yes, I'm noting the questions. I think every now and then some questions are coming up. Really good. Appreciate it. I'm going to answer them towards the end. As I was mentioning, these certifications need to be renewed, and not just the PMP, even the PRINCE2 practitioner needs to be renewed once in 3 years. The foundation PRINCE2 does not have to be renewed. Risk management, comparing that. The risk management procedure is basically the same on both sides. Excuse me. However, on the PMP course, there's a lot more information about techniques for how to identify risks, techniques for how to analyze risks, for example, a risk assessment matrix or sensitivity analysis or simulation. Those kind of techniques are taught in the are covered in the PMP course, whereas in the PRINCE2, it is just a step-by-step summarized view of risk management. However, there are specific guidances on what to do when a risk is analyzed. For example, comparing the impact of a risk against its benefits. So more practical advice on the left side. Issue and change control procedure. There is a simple procedure on the left here, very clear and clean procedure. On the right side, we have got an overall process. It is not described as a step-by-step process in PMP, whereas it is described as a step-by-step process in the PRINCE2 side, on the PRINCE2 side. And issue management is included in PRINCE2 as part of the change management, interestingly. Whereas in the PMP, we don't see issue mentioned here because PRINCE2 considers any issue as a change to a plan. So the moment there is a problem or an issue or a concern in a project, it means something has gone wrong with the original plan. Something has disturbed the original plan. Therefore, there has been a change to something. So it's an interesting view on the definition of issue and change in PRINCE2. Progress monitoring, this is one of the core areas again in the way it is presented in PRINCE2. There are very detailed information about how the progress is monitored against the defined tolerances, who defines the tolerance levels, what happens when the tolerances are breached for budgets or timelines, and how the progress is reported. There are specific guidances on that some reports could be event-driven. For example, when there is a major issue, then a report might be needed. On the other hand, there could be some periodic reports, so good guidance on that part. Whereas the PMP course covers more on the science of communications. I personally benefited by learning a lot about communication science from the PMP course when I did it earlier. So yeah, so that is an interesting bit there. Of course, there are monitoring and controlling techniques taught in PMP, like earned value and variance analysis and all that. Okay, I'm noting the questions coming up from the people. And that, though I'm not saying what the question is, but it makes me think about everything is okay in a book, in a training. Everything looks simple. But when you go back to the real world and practice, that's when we have all those challenges on our head. So even when I have done my teaching for the day and going back to my own consulting world, then that's where I really thinking, is this a technique which I should really use or I should do something better? Maybe just talk to somebody and know what I should do. Yeah. So yeah, monitoring and controlling techniques are covered elaborately on the right side, whereas on the left, it's more about guidance on how to manage exceptions, how to set tolerances and reports. Lastly, there is a process flow in PRINCE2. It is a 7-step process. It is not that it always go through step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 in that order. There is a generic sequence, but the sequence can again go back and forth into a loop. On the other hand, on the PMP side, we've got 5 process groups with 49 processes at the moment, and the 10 areas of project management. So those 10 areas of project management comprise of the 49 processes. So much more elaborate process view. However, it doesn't mean that you can have only 7 in PRINCE2. PRINCE2 is highly flexible. And that's something which is really good in PRINCE2. So much flexibility that you could do the way you want to run a PRINCE2 project, as long as you don't violate some of the mandates of PRINCE2. There are some certain conditions for a project to be a PRINCE2 project. As long as those conditions are fulfilled, you can have flexibility in anything you do with PRINCE2, because it's a specific guideline on how to run a project within certain defined policies. Procurement is explained in the PMP course, but not on the PRINCE2 course. Whereas if you did the program management course from AXELOS, the Managing Successful Programs, which is after PRINCE2, they cover a little bit about procurement there. So that is the summary of the differences there. And I just want to run one more slide before coming to the Q&A session. I think this is going to be a key slide for most of you. And though these are our wordings, you may want to reflect on this and think in your own way, you have the freedom to do that. And the summary here is PMP is based on a body of knowledge. It's a vast science. Because project management is so vast, PMI has taken some of that science and put it into a book and testing us based on that book, as well as other references, as well as psychological testing. Whereas PRINCE2 is a very structured method. It clarifies specific responsibilities, specific steps to review a stage end, etc. One reinforces the science, so the PMP one reinforces the science, whereas the PRINCE2 is a structured approach. Once again, both complement each other. So when I did my PRINCE2 course, though I was doing PRINCE2 projects before, I was even working on some of the British projects in a PRINCE2 mode. However, I was not a qualified PRINCE2 manager at that time, though I did attend training, but yeah, it was like that. So a lot of revelations when you pick one of them and then do the other one afterwards. That's at least my opinion. You might have a different one though. So decision making. These are some of our thoughts from Invensis. So, and from me, you could do the PRINCE2 foundation because it doesn't require any, there are no prerequisites, though it is desired that you have been in some projects or maybe managed some small projects. Foundation, or do the CAPM, Certified Associate in Project Management from PMI. This could be a good starting point. However, note that this is what AXELOS says about foundation PRINCE2. They say that the foundation enables you to be an informed member of a PRINCE2 project rather than becoming a project manager. Though you could try to become a PM after doing the foundation, or you can, while you're already a PM, you can still do the foundation course and continue doing your project management work. Whereas CAPM, this is PMI's language again, to take on project management responsibilities or manage larger projects. But if you have more experience, then you could opt for the practitioner, because in the practitioner, we go through a single scenario, which is close to the exam scenario. And we run through several questions and practice them, and to reflect on the learnings from the PRINCE2 and apply those learnings into specific situations. And the same with PMP as well. And again, one good thing about the PRINCE2 practitioner is you don't need to prove your experience to write this exam. Whereas for PMP, you need to demonstrate your experience in the application form. So, and a couple of more things here. If you have experience, as I said, you could do PMP or the PRINCE2 practitioner. If you have experience, you could still do CAPM or foundation. Nobody stops you from doing that. Yeah. Or my verdict here: get the best by doing both. And this is what I heard from several people actually who attended both courses. They said that they learned a lot from both. They actually gone back with the in-depth learnings from the techniques from the PMP course, and however a structured approach from the PRINCE2 course to be able to manage their projects properly. And I know I have not touched upon things like which certification is more popular in which country. Yeah. I think that's not so important. However, please make sure there may be some mandates in your own region. They may, your organization might desire that you should be either PMP or CAPM or PRINCE2. Please check that. Or maybe in certain countries, particularly in Europe and UK and in Australia, PRINCE2 has gained a lot of a lead since several decades. Yeah. And other regions have also started using PRINCE2 because of its enormous applicability and success. And the same with PMP also. So both PMP and PRINCE2 have been mutually acknowledging each other and grateful to each other for expansion of both proposals globally. Thank you for listening to me so far. Really appreciate you honoring me so far. And I actually have all the questions with me, and I'm going to answer them one by one. Yeah, I'm going through the questions now. So I think, yeah, this is from Kem. He was mentioning that the break is after 89 minutes. As far as I'm aware on the PMI site, even lately, they mentioned after the first 2 hours, they're giving the 10-minute break. Yeah. And there's a question from Miss Arshi. And the question is, so as of now, for the beginners in project management professional, Prince2 is recommended, meaning foundation. Yes, I think by the time I have come to these questions, some of these questions might have been already clarified, but still to clarify, yes, Prince2 Foundation or CAPM are good starting points. And Sharon has asked this question about how to renew the Prince2 and PMP. Just briefly, the Prince2 Foundation is permanently valid, whereas the Prince2 Practitioner is valid only for 3 years. For the practitioner to be continued without having to write the exam again after 3 years, you have to do two things. One, you need to become a member of AXELOS. So you have to go to the AXELOS site and um, take on membership there. It's an annual membership, and you need to take on that membership within 3 months of passing the exam, the practitioner exam. And you need to have the annual membership continuing for 3 years. Yeah, so you have to do that part, 3 years membership, and every year you need to demonstrate about 20 hours of contribution to project management, either in the form of writing articles or self-learning or attending webinars, conferences, or teaching or mentoring somebody. And there are different categories where you need to demonstrate those hours. And for PMP, similarly, without having to write the exam, once in 3 years, you could you have to demonstrate 60. They call it PDUs, professional development units, and on the PMP side. And it's not that every year you need to be a member or do 20 hours or so, but during the 3 years, you just need to submit 60 hours total of your effort on project management. Very similarly, attending conferences or contributing to project management and so on. And AXELOS calls them CPDs, continuing professional development units, whereas PMP calls them PDUs, professional development units. And Ken has this interesting one actually, Ken. And the question is, or a comment is, it is often said that a certified PM can be universally deployed, regardless of educational background. However, in reality, when you look at the job descriptions of advertised jobs, they very often ask for certain technical backgrounds as required. What is my take on this? Yeah, so you kind of stumped me, Kem, with that. A good one there. Well, I will tell you my experience first because I worked a lot in IT and software and IT infrastructure management. So that experience did help me a lot with managing projects and programs eventually. For example, I wouldn't be able to go into a construction industry and manage even very small, simple construction projects. So technical background is definitely necessary. In fact, PMI and Prince2, both and AXELOS both mention that some amount of technical experience is required, but not in-depth experience. Yeah, and but there are some industries where I've heard from people from the classes where a project manager may have to be a PhD holder or a doctorate in a certain science to become a project manager. For example, in the healthcare, it's not a surprise when it could be a doctorate, PhD, who will become a project manager because they need to know a lot about the molecular structures or and all that. I picked up that because of the current the vaccine kind of situations we are into. So that's my take on that. Hope it's satisfying to you right now. And yes, so it's a mix of technical as well as project management experience. Yeah, you're welcome, Kim. And scrolling back to the other questions, Janet, Ms. Janet has asked this one. If I have a master's in project management, do I need Prince2 or PMP training certification? I can't find the feedback form. Okay, feedback form. Hopefully I've received it by now. Otherwise, we're going to help you with that. Yes. Yeah, you'll be receiving the form in case you haven't received it, Ms. Janet.
It's already there in the chat box.
Yeah, I have got a lot of chats. So yes, thank you, Jaya.
Okay.
Thank you. So the answer to this point is, if you have already done a master's in project management, you do not need to attend the PMP training course. That is sufficient to sit the exam. Yeah? That's the PMI's Uh, so you already fulfilled that prerequisite. As long as your master's has taken at least 35 hours, which I'm sure it did, it must be in hundreds of hours, I think. So then it's sufficient enough. Excuse me, sorry. However, the certification is up to you. There are people who have done the masters and have still come to these classes just because their organization has demanded it. And again, it may depend on the culture, your local regional culture or organizational culture, those kind of aspects. Mhm. Because for sure, in the master's program, it goes into more depth in certain areas. Because in a 4-day program, how much can you expect? Though the manuals are much larger, you may have to read about between 400 to 600 pages, either in PRINCE2 or the PMP course. Those are the manual sizes approximately. So it's quite a lot. But then in a master's program, you may have to read more books beyond that. And I think Kim has a similar point or question. Are PMP and PRINCE2 certification acknowledged in any form if you decide to do a bachelor's or master's in project management? Thereafter, do you get any free credits? Yes. Whatever you do after the certification for PMP or PRINCE2 practitioner, you would be able to claim that. So even if you do an agile certification, for example, or some other master's program or attend a webinar, you can use those hours to claim your points for recertification. However, we need to be cautious. There are different segments to contribute. We cannot contribute all the required points in just one area. We may have to do some mentoring, we may have to do some study or project experience, combination of all of them. But generally, it is simple and straightforward. The splits across various categories of contributions. Question from Ivan is the CAPM exam going to change also in 2021? Right now, we haven't heard about that. They're still going with the current syllabus only. However, if the new PMBOK comes by the end of the year, the 7th edition, then we all would have to watch out on change to the syllabus. So please do keep a watch on the PMI site, specifically on the CAPM certification page. Right now, there is no indication. Louis has this question about, can we get the recorded slides of this training? Yes, the recordings will be sent to all of you. Yeah. And same for Janet. Yeah, not to worry. Recordings will be sent. I can't say exactly when, but just wait for a day or two. We'll just process them properly and send it to you. Yeah, feedback forms are sent to everyone. And Arshi has actually got this question. What do we actually mean by the certification expiry date? Yeah, good point. So I did my PMP certification in March 2016. Yeah, I'd done it initially in 1998, first time. But eventually, I didn't continue it for a long time. Then I sat the exam once again in 2016, which means by 2019 March, it is expiring. Which means after that point in time, I cannot call myself PMP unless I'm writing the exam again, or I am showing evidence of 60 hours of contribution to project management. So what I did before I reached 2019 March, I showed evidence of, or I submitted 60 hours of effort in project management, for example, teaching or writing articles, participating in project management communities, or attending other trainings, and I got all my 60 minimum. And as soon as I submitted, I got a message from them that please pay this money and get recertified. I paid the money and I was recertified. And PMP, yes, valid for 3 years. CAPM for 5 years. PRINCE2 practitioner for 3 years. Now, PMP in particular, the validity is for 3 years, but you have 4 years to submit the 60 points, the 60 PDOs. Just in case you miss out submitting those 60 credits, within the 3 years, you have a grace period of 1 more year, the 4th year, just to catch up and submit all of them. But then in the 4th year, one is not allowed to use the PMP credential after their name. But the moment you've done the 60 in the 4th year, you get back your PMP credential. I'm looking at some more questions here. Yes, question from Energy is, yeah, that's the tag on this chat, Energy. What are the chances that demonstrated experience as reported is deemed insufficient? Yes, that can happen sometimes. That particularly PMI might say that experience is not sufficient. They might recommend to write the CAPM exam, or they may say, please continue to work for another year or two, and then come back to come back to us, and we would be glad to allow you to write it. So on a case by case, they may advise the individual specifically. Okay, I won't be going too much into the renewal steps. I will see if there is more time at the end. Arshi, I looked at your question, the steps for renewal. It's a complete process. There is something known as a CCRS system from PMI, continued credential requirement system, which goes into the process of going to the website and logging in with our ID and submitting from time to time those efforts. So for example, if I've done some project management activity in this week, I may submit those hours into the system, and they will get approved by PMI. So PMI is going to review them and approve them if they look okay. And yeah, that's how it happens briefly. Rajiv Khanna has this question. We have heard a lot about Praxis, which is an integrated program and project management qualification. Yes, I've heard that too. I'm not Praxis qualified though. And the question is, and therefore I'm informed that instead of doing 3 qualifications, I can do 1. It is possible, Rajiv, just that, and this is what I have heard, some organizations may not be aware of the Praxis model. Yeah, it is an excellent model, no doubt. Even I've looked at it. I've not got certified in that. But then it goes into program portfolio aspects also. So it's a good idea, depending on where in the chain of management we are. And if the organization recognizes that, and if we can influence them to recognize it, that could be an option. I don't want to say something like, yes, do practice and not the others, and then want somebody to to have some negative experience after that. But yes, it's a known, well reputed. I believe right now you could do that exam from APMG or EXIN, one of those exam certifying bodies, exam administering bodies. Melako has this point. Which one best important in developing countries for development project? Okay, this is a different question altogether. While I respect the question, you're asked, I think, about which are those regions or countries where development projects can be done. Well, I can't answer this directly, or not I'm an expert on this neither. But I think in general, organizations like United Nations and so on do have their mandates on which regions in the world require specific projects. So I think it goes into this direction. So maybe there are some indicators on their portals about such things. Unfortunately, I can't answer you, Melako, on your question in depth. Again, it's about, I think, prioritizing the portfolios. Some organizations may be NGOs who would not look at profit, but want to look at the prioritization of significant community projects. Or on the other hand, there are financial projects mostly where they look at the profitability and prioritize those projects. I've got a question from Jean de Ziv Sabimana. Question is, why Prince2 Foundation is greater than CAPM? No, I didn't say that. CAPM is from PMI. It's entry level, but it also allows people to tackle more challenging projects. This is the PMI's verdict for new PMs or for existing PMs who want to take on more challenging projects. Whereas Prince2 Foundation is good for people who would like to know, who don't have experience and would like to take up either Prince2 or CAPM. Even there are people who have a lot of experience and they come to the Prince2 Foundation. So we can't really say that Prince2 Foundation is better than CAPM or vice versa. Yeah? So that would be the answer to this. They both complement. Each of them comes with a different, as I was telling you, one is a science of project management. The other is a structured methodology. So they both complement each other. Rajiv, I noted your link. You said practice qualification is valid for 5 years. So does it mean this is valid? You have given me a link. I would have to look at it afterwards, Rajiv. Yes. Okay. You mean if you have the certification, this could be good enough for the PRINCE2 Foundation. If that's what you meant, yeah, that should be good enough. But you may want to check that with particularly with the customer care of AXELOS. They have mentioned that any equivalent certification, project management certification is good enough to be eligible for the PRINCE2 practitioner, not for foundation, sorry. For practitioner, you need at least some other PM certification or the foundation certification. So practice should be good enough. Regina has this question about, can you please explain more about CAPM? Should we refer to PMBOK? Yes, CAPM is based on the PMBOK. It's a book-based, textbook-based exam with very few situational questions. So, whereas the PMP exam is more situational. Yes, you need to refer to PMBOK 6th edition. And once the 7th edition is out, then the 7th edition. Okay, I'm looking at the watch, but good questions coming up. So, please keep staying back. Really appreciate it. Sharon has got another question related to Janet's earlier one. Which is better, professional certification or master's in project management? I think I already clarified that. So if you already have a master's, depending on if the organization still wants you to go and do PMP or PRINCE2, then you may want to do that. But if the organization accepts the master's or whichever one, you can go ahead with that. So I think it's basically is the organization's needs or desires, which is the real answer to this question. Masters, just in summary, the master's program, depending on the duration of the master's, some people do 1 year masters at the university physically earlier. So that would go more in depth on, for example, you would study earned value management in 1 semester. You would have a textbook on earned value for 1 semester along with other texts. Whereas in the PMP course, earned value is taught in just about half an hour. So you see the difference in the way of learning. All I can say, maybe those who have done the masters might find it easier to tackle the PMP course or the CAPM course. Yeah, Mr. Sabimana has, yeah, Jean Zizio has asked to share the presentation on email because internet is unstable. Yeah, it's going to be sent to, the recording will be sent to everyone. To Jean Zizio. Yeah, we just made a note of this email request, Jean. And Rajiv has clarified to my point. He has worked in healthcare for over 30 years and having a PhD, it's not necessary for being a project manager. Yeah, that could be possible. There may be some organizations where they have asked for PhDs. Some of the people in my classes used to tell me that they would have a PhD, not a mandate or a policy, but maybe some preference at times that we need such and such qualification for somebody to be a PM. Yeah. Again, those policies could have changed in the same organizations as well. But thank you, Rajiv. Sharon has this other question: P3, M3, and PRINCE2. How is it different? And P3O. In fact, P3, M3 is also is a legally correct word, and and whereas you said P3O, different from PRINCE2. By the way, P3O, as you mentioned, Sharon, is portfolio program and project offices. The P3O course from AXELOS and from Invensis, it focuses more on how to set up and manage a project office. So be it a project management office or a program management office or a portfolio management office. It doesn't go into the aspects of managing individual projects or programs or portfolios, but it is more like the support hub, how to manage that support hub. So that's the difference between the P3O and the, now, the P3O and the other things out there. Now, a P3O could be a full-fledged, if it's a very mature P3O, project program and portfolio management office, they could have fully qualified project managers, program managers, and portfolio managers. But irrespective of that qualification, they still have to understand the real need of a P3O. Why do we need a P3O? For example, a P3O is established to have a consistent governance across an organization to manage projects, programs, and portfolios. Therefore, the P3O's focus is consistency and governance, whereas project management, program management, and portfolio management have their own governance and monitoring and controlling methodologies. Kim, yeah, sorry, I got your point now. Your question was not about recertification, but rather if the university offering master's or bachelor program recognizes PMP or PRINCE2. Okay. Um, well, I don't know. If somebody's doing a master, they may need some qualification. For example, a bachelor qualification. But if the university is insisting on the PMP and PRINCE2, then you may have to go for it. Recognition, yes, they may recognize, but I don't know personally what happens based on this recognition. If they say that yeah, we recognize PRINCE2 or PMP, it may be beneficial to the student of the masters. On the other hand, if they say no, you would need to have this certification before you can apply for masters, then it's a different thing. So hopefully I gave you more clarity, Kim, on that part. I think it mainly depends on what the university is advertising. So personally, I've not heard about from my contacts that um, they do not recognize. They generally have recognized. Joshua, you've got a point here that you're more concerned about the future of project management and the PMs, marketability of the certification going forward. Similarly, is a recognition to work across countries. Besides experience, what role does these certifications play? Can you please elaborate on this? Okay, it's a wide question actually. Um, so project management is of course a science and we need to study that and practice it. But finally, when we do it, it depends on what training we have, what experience, what qualification we have. But experience matters a lot. Most of the organizations do want experience along with the certification. So one could be newly certified, but they gain recognition only when they gain more experience. And this is something which PMI has also clarified in their one of their Pulse of the Profession reports. Meaning they have said that clearly that the salary increase doesn't happen just because a person is certified PMP, but also depends on the organization's culture, the management of the organization, and what experience they carry. So this is one part of your question. Certifications have been demonstrated as valuable. Remembering the reports from PMI and AXELOS, which I showed in the beginning. Both of them have done extensive surveys from around the globe, and they have concluded that certifications are highly in demand for next 2 years and beyond, and even for the next 10 years from those organizations. So organizations are recognizing certifications rather than just attending training and not getting certified or some kind of qualification. And to work across countries, it depends on, that's the second part of your question, that is about understanding cultural aspects. So maybe some cultural training exposure can be helpful. And again, organizations, in my experience, I've seen organizations allow an individual to get into an environment of multicultural, where there is less challenge. And then once the individual gains experience, they are able to handle projects where there is a lot more cultural diversity. So it takes a while before we can take on work across countries. But I think nowadays there's a lot more global working. Even then, there can be cultural conflicts, which are not clearly visible, but underneath the surface that can happen. So very valid point. It takes maybe some experience plus some training on cultural aspects. And besides experience, how does the certification play a role? Yeah, it's about recognizing. There are some organizations who don't recognize these certifications much. They say, okay, you got certified, so what? Please continue doing your job. Yeah, it does happen. But there are some organizations, maybe they are more mature and they want to ensure best practices. They want to ensure that all their PMs are consistently applying behaviors and techniques. So they may prefer certified PMs. So that's my brief take on that. Uh, yeah, Jean de Dieu has this question: are M&D specialists eligible for PRINCE2 Foundation and Practitioner? Jean de Dieu, sorry. Hmm. Sorry, what did you mean by MND here? Just to be clear. Um, the eligibility for Prince2 is okay. Anyone can appear for Prince2. You can attend a training and go for Prince2 Foundation and Practitioner. Just for practitioner, you need to have some PM qualification, either the Prince2 Foundation or some other qualification. But for
Hello?
PMP, you need, yeah,
Hello?
hello.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Jean.
Yes, you would like to know what is MNE? It is monitoring and evaluation.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so because, but the eligibility criteria is just that anyone who has done 3 years of project management is eligible for the PMP. But that experience should be across uh, end-to-end projects. So starting up the project, monitoring, evaluation, planning, execution, and closure. So if that individual has not performed either of these, at least in one project, then they are not eligible for the exam. So PMI is going to look carefully at whether the individual has done the project from start to finish. So for example, I could have done in one project, I could have stayed for a few weeks and then just started the project. But then I have left the project and continued in some other project as part of planning and execution. That is okay. But overall, we need to show evidence of, or at least in the application form, we should have experience in the various project management areas. So including starting, planning, execution, monitoring, controlling, and closure. But for Prince2 practitioner and foundation, you don't need that. For foundation, there are no prerequisites, and for practitioner, you need to be having some PM qualification. Sharon has this question: to renew the certification, is there a grace period for Prince2 like for PMP? No, for Prince2 practitioner, it is just 3 years. There is no grace period, unfortunately. I'm actually currently running my third year of Prince2 practitioner. If I don't submit my, so in Prince2 practitioner, I need to submit 20 hours of contribution every year. So I've done the 20 hours for year one and year two, and I've been a member for year one and year two. This is my third year of membership. And within a couple of months, I need to show some more hours, and then I'm hoping to be recertified, assuming they will approve my submitted hours. Arshi has this point, CAPM also has validity for certain years only. Yes, Ms. Arshi, the CAPM is valid only for 5 years. And but the CAPM doesn't have recertification. The exam has to be written again. So that's, and just got just a few more, I think. Which certification is good for working with organizations like UN, DFID, FHI 360, etc. Okay, I know the UN one. So generally, I have seen people from such organizations attending the Prince2 course. That's my opinion. Some of them have also come from the PMP, but lately, I would say, more so on the Prince2 course. Maybe because it's the mandate from their organizations, because those people have told me that their organization, like UN, for example, have requested them to go for the Prince2 course. So you may want to check that also. Definitely helpful though, irrespective of which certification you go for. But maybe better to check out which one your organization will value. Janaka has this question. Can PMP certified person do Prince2? What is your opinion? Is it worth? It is worth. I'm not trying to market, by the way, any of these courses so far. I just putting collective opinions from not just mine, from some of my peers in the training industry, and also from practitioners of both Prince2 and PMP. Yes, what they have told me is it has really helped them to do both PMP or CAPM plus Prince2, because Prince2 is a structured approach, clarifies roles and responsibilities, business case, specific ways for managing the progress of the project, authorization based progress, whereas PMP is a vast science, more in-depth techniques. So they both complement each other. Of course, we have to spend a little more money, a little more budget, and if that allows, then it's quite worth it. It definitely helps people in having a good view about project management. Maybe can help also in managing projects across wider cultures and countries. Okay, Kem, yeah, you clarified that your questions were more about the credits than for pre-qualification. Okay. Mm, I don't know if for the master's course, do you get any credits from the PMP or PRINCE2? I don't know about that. But vice versa, yes. If you're done the master's, then yes, you can use all your credits from the master's as a no need to attend the PMP training at all and directly go for the exam. However, training is recommended because of the nature of the exam. It would be highly risky to write the PMP exam without a PMP specific training, though you would have met the 35-hour mandate for the training through the masters. Okay. Apollinaire has this question. If you are Prince2 practitioner certified, what would be the advantage if you undertake PMP certification? I think I have covered this in detail on the difference between the two, what is covered in the PMP course and what is covered in the Prince2. And so they complement each other. Just in summary, the PMP course, for example, goes into specific techniques of risk identification or earned value, specific techniques for monitoring and control like earned value or trend analysis, whereas PMP focuses more on authorization-based approach. What kind of documents will be reviewed before progress is made, how exceptions are handled, and so on. Yeah, and I think Apollinaire, your question was more about the advantage in terms of academic credits. Yes, good point actually. So let's say you have done the PMP certification. When you do the PRINCE2 after that, you can use your PRINCE2 hours for the PMP submission. So what I mean is uh, because you have to renew your PMP, you can use the PRINCE2's accumulated. So if you do the PRINCE2 course, let's say you got the a certificate for 16 hours for 2 days of PRINCE2, you can use the 16 hours and submit them to the PMP recertification. But then you would have to do the PRINCE2 after you have cleared the PMP exam. Yeah? Then it will be valid. And similarly, you can do the same vice versa. So to maintain your PRINCE2 practitioner, you can use the PMP certification, the PMP training, not the certification, but the training. But it won't take maybe the entire 35 hours because for PRINCE2 recertification, there are different categories to accumulate those hours. Even in the PMP one, there are different categories to demonstrate the hours. I've got this question from Joshua. Can I get my 35 hours training before the PMP exam from Invensis? What would be the first step to take? Yes, definitely. The training is required before the PMP exam, unless you have some other attended some other project management courses. However, for the PMP exam, better to attend a PMP specific training. And after the training, generally an individual requires between, again, it is very personal. Some people may want to write the exam within 3 or 4 weeks of attending the PMP training, but some people may need 2 or 3 months or even more. Yeah, so it can be done. You need to, let me show you. I think I've got, sorry, I'll go back to this slide here. You need to contact Invensis. Please do contact Invensis Learning. I'm going to show you the last slide here. These are the contact information for Invensis if you want to attend the training. So Kim's question is, so if I do the PMP after PRINCE2 practitioner, I can get that recognized as part of 60 PDOs. Yeah, so just to be very clear, because you want to use the PMP experience for PRINCE2 recertification, you can use some of the PMP training hours for the PRINCE2 recertification. You can do that, and vice versa. Because these organizations have their own policies as to how many. So if I attend a 35-hour PMP course, I cannot submit all the 35 hours for my PRINCE2 recertification because there are different categories for submission. So it may show that, okay, 35 is okay for one area, but not, you're still not covered the other areas. So those kind of messages will come from that system. But yes, either way is good enough. You can use them mutually for each other's benefit, both PRINCE2 and PMP. It's more the training hours rather than the certificate itself, which is valid for the recertification. because the certification itself may not carry any credits. It's just the attendance on the training, just to be clear. Another question, how would renewing PMP and CAPM add value for someone who has been working in project management already since a number of years? Okay. Now, these certifying bodies continually update their guidances. So for example, the PMBOK guide changes approximately once every 4 years, wherein they introduce more and more um, emerging methods or changes to existing ways of working on project management. That's the reason PMBOK 7th guide is going to be coming out this year, which will have a lot more. So if you looked at the PMBOK 7th edition compared to the previous edition, there's a significant change in the information in the newer edition. There are some videos on the PMI site where you can go and see them. I think that's the value of renewing these certifications. However, and renewal means that we are up to date on the subject. We may be because renewal can be done only if an individual is attending trainings, conferences, webinars on the subject, retraining, more recent trainings. Yeah, so because the training also changes periodically. When the PMBOK 7th edition comes out, the trainings will significantly change. So that's the benefit of. So that's why. And it demonstrates that the individual is still working in project management, because they may have decided to move to some other domain or some other profession, stop project management and do something else. So it shows the relevance of their connection to the profession. Now, Kim, on your 60 versus 20 CPDs, yes, I did understand that you would have meant 20 only. No worries on that. But of that, I don't know if you can take the entire 20 and give it to PRINCE2. It depends on how AXELOS will process your input. Because the 20 has to come from different areas, from contribution to either teaching or practicing project management, and from learning, and from other areas. Yeah? So that's, we go into those details in the actual course. Yeah, okay, good. Just done, almost done. I've got just only 2 more comments and almost done. David has this question from, when is the next PMP exam? So training, yeah, we arrange the training from Invensis. So please do contact Invensis for the training needs. Exam can be scheduled by yourself. Once you attend the training, you need to fill in the application form. We are going to assist you with the application filling process and everything. And then you can book the exam appointment. We are going to tell you everything clearly in the training program, how to book the exam appointment and all that. Then you can book it based on your own convenience. And it can be done from home also nowadays. Previously, you would have to come to a physical center, exam center, authorized center. But because of the COVID-19, they're allowing to write the exam temporarily from home also on the webcam monitored. It's webcam monitored. Melako has this point. Do you provide scholarship for those training? As far as I know, there is no scholarship. We do have discounts and yeah, some discounts. Yeah. Sorry, Melako, no scholarships at the moment, at least. Just some discounts. But please do contact the Invensis support just to get some ideas. Yeah, we'll see what best we can do for you with your situation. And Kim, yes, as you said, as I mentioned, at least a part would be recognized. That's true. And there's one, I just missed a point from one of you earlier. I intentionally skipped that because yeah, project admin has mentioned this. Can you briefly explain the difference between PMP and PRINCE2 for a new graduate and early career in projects? Yeah, we covered this in detail, but I know you joined late. That's why you're requesting this. So for a new graduate, somebody early in their career, it is better to do the PRINCE2 foundation and the CAPM or the CAPM or both. Either do the PRINCE2 foundation or CAPM or both. Because for the PMP exam, experience is mandatory. Minimum 3 years for degree holders and minimum 5 years for diploma holders for the PMP exam. PRINCE2 practitioner, by the way, doesn't ask for experience, but experience does help in the exam, because the PRINCE2 practitioner exam is more challenging. It is a situation based, so you can expect that if you have handled similar situations, plus when you learn PRINCE2, then it becomes easier to tackle that exam. Isabella, Miss Isabella has asked this, do you have PRINCE2 resit exam? PRINCE2, yeah, I was clarifying that already a few times. The PRINCE2 foundation, there is no resit because it's, oh, okay, I know what you mean by resit. Resit option is available from PeopleCert. There is a nominal fee, not the complete fee for the exam. If you want to take the resit option, meaning if a person thinks that they may want to take a second attempt in case they don't clear the first attempt, they can pay an additional amount of money in advance so that for the second attempt, they don't have to pay a huge amount of money. Just a small portion of that. A resit is possible for both the PRINCE2 foundation and practitioner. Yes. So you may want to mention this when you take the training from us, that you would like to take the resit option, and you may be given an additional charge for that, a nominal charge. And Achala has this question. This is the last point I'm seeing. More and more questions have come up in the last few minutes. Do appreciate that. I'm happy that a lot of questions came up. All of you made me, kept me on my edge and made me think on my feet. So Achala's point is, which course would you recommend for someone who is already working as project executive since last 4 years and looking for career growth, also has taken result-based management training? Yeah, we all know results are more important than activities. In fact, PRINCE2 clearly says it is not the project activities which are important, but the outputs and outcomes which are more important. So maybe on that point, I could say PRINCE2 is good. But again, all projects are about outcomes and value. And we are living in a modern digital world, and where outputs are less important, outcomes, service quality, customer satisfaction, value realization become more important. So that's why, and again, each course has its own way of looking at project management. PRINCE2 is very structured. It can give an edge in making the project management more structured, whereas PMP course allows us to know more techniques in depth. So that's why these two are good for for Achala's question. There are actually other courses as well, Achala, rather than just PRINCE2. Project management, I think you mentioned about other things. For example, service management, or there is some audio disturbance, I think. Let me just take care of that. Just a second, please. There's some audio disturbance coming from somewhere. 1 second, please. Unfortunately, I'm not able to control anybody's mics. So let me see what I can do here. Yes, I just put them on mute just for a moment. Sorry about that. Yeah, so for Achala, the other courses could be either service management or ISO, or there's so many other ones like Lean, Kanban, program management is another option. And what else? Recently, AXELOS has published the newer version of ITIL service management, that is. So they've got some beginner and higher level courses on which are about creating service value. So those are other recommendations. Or if you want to look at digital transformation, then there are courses like Verism, VERISM, which is about digital transformation, an operating model for digital transformation and service management in the digital world. So those kind of courses are also available from us.
Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute my mic. I was actually looking more towards M&E, monitoring and evaluation, and project management. As the place where I work, they mainly focus on those things. So result-based management, monitoring and evaluation, and the further course on project management, that would help me career growth actually.
Okay, Achala, thank you for clarifying. Okay. So by monitoring and evaluation, do you mean like compliance kind of things? Or is it just pure project monitoring and control?
It's more like project monitoring and control.
Hmm. Then Prince2 would be good because Prince2 has a very specific way of, because Prince2 is project in controlled environments. So there's a lot of emphasis on defining the controls first and then checking progress based on those controls and evaluating the progress. For example, is the project moving properly as per the justification? Is the justification still valid or not? Sometimes the project may be justified in the beginning, but after a few months, it may be a waste of money and effort. So they look at all that and then the continued justification principle. Yeah? So that's why I think that could be better off.
Yeah, that's where I'm more confused because Prince2 Foundation is something for the beginners. So having project management experience for more than 4 years, I don't think that would be add value to my career. But then Prince2 practitioner sounds like they have a expiry date as such for the certification, and
Yeah.
some of our projects are longer than the validation of the course. So that's a bit confused.
Uh, no, of course,
Sir,
foundation is just for learning.
can I add a point? Can I add a point? When we say monitoring and evaluation, it does not limit it on initiation up to closing, but it is implemented from initiation, execution, monitoring, and closing. I mean, monitoring and evaluation specialists participate on all four
Yeah.
five phases, since which is recommended for this specialist or for this professional person.
Yeah, Prince2, yes, yes. I remember you had mentioned about M&E earlier. Yeah, thank you. So I recollect you now. So practitioner, yes, of course. I didn't specifically say foundation, but practitioner is good with experience. Practitioner doesn't require experience as such. You don't have to put your experience in the application for the Prince2 practitioner. But yes, it actually takes you through a scenario where you can understand more about applying the terms and concepts. So whatever the terms and concepts have been taught in the foundation course, they're being applied in the practitioner course. And it focuses, of course, that also focuses on the start to finish of a project, just like the PMP course. But just based on your situation, the Prince2 may be more suited. And then because you're only into M&E, therefore the PMP, you may not meet the prerequisites of the PMP course. That's why I was saying Prince2 practitioner is better. However, I remember Achala was mentioning about the expiry of the practitioner. That's just because AXELOS wants to ensure that the people are still doing project management. And that's why you have to become a member of AXELOS Prince2 continuously for 3 years, and then also contribute 20 hours or CPDs of effort towards project management every year, making it a total of 60 in 3 years. Yeah. Otherwise, because an individual might have stopped doing project management or M&E, and then they may still want to just continue this, get recertified without having shown evidence of being in project management. So hopefully that helps with the decision making for you, Achala.
It does a little bit. Thank you.
And I know these are long subjects. Normally, when people come to the course, it's a more relaxed and open discussion on going deeper into these and debating, yeah, what is possible, what is not possible. Okay. Okay, then let me see. So it's been a longer session than I anticipated, and a lot of interesting questions from everyone. Mr. Kiran Kumar has an interesting question. What about experience gained in the armed forces as an officer? And we'll just take just a couple more, and then we'll wind up. What are experience gained in the armed forces as an officer? Will it count towards experience when applying? As long as it is in project management. So meaning for the PMP course, if you're doing project management and you can show evidence of that, then it is okay, depending on your role in your armed forces. And but for Prince2 foundation and practitioner, no need to show your experience in the application. But if you do have, yes, it will count. So the industry or the domain doesn't matter. The discipline where you are in doesn't matter. All disciplines are respected. It's just the nature of the work. In fact, we have had people from the armed forces also who have their own interesting stories sometimes in the classrooms, particularly. Locally, when I have delivered classrooms, we have had some, we usually want those people to talk about their interesting stories, which highlight the importance of those forces as well. Kim, yeah, I'm noting your point about what you just spoke earlier. In the non-profit sectors, you have the monitoring and controlling. However, it's more a monitoring and evaluation. And you have said that you found the PRINCE2 Foundation still very useful, even though you had experience. Yeah, so good point. Thank you for that feedback. So Achala, yeah. So even with the experience, PRINCE2 Foundation can be useful because the foundation course is not that it is simple. The only difference between the foundation and practitioner is the theory is the same for both, but the practitioner goes deeper with more practice on the theory. So that's and it goes to maybe the practitioner course goes more into some of the finer details or the subtleties of the PRINCE2 mechanisms. And Kim, your point is that evaluation is to evaluate the impact of certain initiatives. So this is a good learning for me as well. Yeah, certain initiatives may have certain results. So that needs to be pre-evaluated or continuously evaluated and post-evaluated. So that's quite good. So it's like checking the justification or looking at the value realization, the outcomes realization. It's like monitoring, assessing, evaluating, verifying the outcomes. So again, depends on the relationship, right? Sometimes you have a basic relationship between the customer and the supplier. Then the evaluation is very simple, straightforward. If it's a partnership, it can be in an informal way. If it's a cooperative relationship, it comes in a different way. So all those aspects might have been experienced by you. And those of you who have chatted me, thank you. And some of the detailed thank yous as well. Yeah, you're all welcome. And we really appreciate the amount of questions you asked today. Okay, then with that, we're going to close the session. Thank you all very much. Take care.